Now, two gunmen involved in the Bondi Beach shooting have been identified as a father-son pair.
And this is according to local media reports. Authorities have also confirmed it. They had told their family they were going on a South Coast fishing trip. During a press briefing, police said they were confident that the two individuals were the only people involved in Sunday's incident and that they were not searching for a third suspect. They described the incident, which resulted in the deaths of 16 people, including a child, as an anti-Semitic terrorist attack carried out at a Jewish festival.
I can say that we are not looking for a further offender. We are satisfied that there were two offenders involved in yesterday's incident. One is deceased. The second is in critical but stable condition in hospital at the moment. The offenders are a 50-year-old and 24-year-old male who are father and son.
Now, one of the gunmen has been named by local media, and according to Australian public broadcaster ABC, the alleged assailant was Naveed Akram from the Sydney suburb of Bondi Beach.
Officers raided two properties in Sydney, reportedly the homes of these two gunmen. Visuals show police still present at the properties.
We saw lots of police cars raided this street, and especially in that house. Yeah, so we couldn't sleep. We were watching everything. Yeah, it was so scary.
Australia's Jewish diaspora is small but deeply embedded in the wider community, with about 150,000 people who identify as Jewish in the country of 27 million. About one-third of them are estimated to live in Sydney's eastern suburbs, including Bondi.
Around 1,000 people had attended the Hanukkah event. A new eyewitness video has emerged, and the footage shows people celebrating on the beach moments before the chaos erupted, and they fled as gunmen opened fire. Witnesses said the shooting at the famed beach, the iconic Bondi Beach, which was packed on a hot evening, lasted about 10 minutes, sending hundreds of people scattering along the sand and into nearby streets and parks. Community co-chief said that they wanted to kill as many Jews as possible.
People came to kill Jewish children and women and the elderly, and they knew that here they would have, in a relatively small area, hundreds and hundreds of people, like fish in a barrel. And that's what they wanted. They wanted to kill as many Jewish people as possible simply because they were Jewish, for the crime of being Jewish.
Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese called the attack an act of pure evil as he laid flowers at the entrance to the Bondi Pavilion on the beach. He said his country is mourning the dead by flying flags at half-mast on Monday.
What we saw yesterday was an act of pure evil, an act of anti-Semitism, an act of terrorism on our shores in an iconic Australian location, Bondi Beach, that is associated with joy, associated with families gathering, associated with celebrations, and it is forever tarnished by what has occurred last evening.
All right, to discuss this further, we're now being joined live by Dr. John Coyne from Canberra. Dr. Coyne is the Director of the National Security Programme at the Australian Strategic Policy Institute and Counter-Terrorism. He's a counter-terrorism expert, that is. Dr. Coyne, thanks so much for joining us here. Our condolences to all those who have suffered yesterday in Australia. Those visuals were shocking for everyone to see, and from what we've gathered from the authorities, it was a father-son duo. But from your understanding and in your appreciation, I wanted to understand what is next for Australia's security apparatus to ensure that something of this scale never happens again.
Look, thank you very much for having me. As you'll appreciate, whether you're in India or whether you're in Australia, terrorist attacks against innocent people are an attack on all of us. They're an attack on our democracies and our countries. Australia has been very, very fortunate Over the last 25 years during the global war on terror, our agencies, be they policing or intelligence, are the envy of the world in terms of disrupting attacks. While we've had some tragedies, they are few and far between. This most certainly is the worst mass shooter attack in over 3 decades in Australia. There will be a lot of questions around how these individuals maintained access to firearms. There'll be lots of questions in regards to what intelligence was known. But it is way too early to be announcing any new policy initiatives. Needless to say, this is clear evidence that hate speech in any description is unacceptable in modern countries.
Also, Dr. Coyne, we know about like American gun laws, but it's difficult to understand what kind of gun laws do we have in Australia. We know that this person, of course, had more guns, but what kind of laws or gun control laws do we have in Australia? If you could just tell us about it.
Look, a fantastic question. We in Australia have some of the strongest gun laws in the world. Those gun laws were developed in 1996 under the John Howard government after a particularly harrowing and certainly our worst spree killing in the history of Australia, where over 30 people were killed. Those controls, both with licensing, denying access to fully automatic weapons, have been in place for 3 decades and have prevented these sorts of attacks in the past. So what we see here is an attack that is unusual by Australian standards and that gun laws should have stopped.
Dr. Coyne, I just wanted to take it a little further from where Jyotsna left it. With 6 firearms, licensed firearms, what limits are permissible for any individual to be holding firearms? How many firearms can one individual hold, and what's the purpose usually for buying firearms in Australia?
There's no set number of firearms. You can obtain a firearms licence for 4 basic purposes. The first one is as a collector of firearms, so this is where you're collecting historical pieces. The second relates to sporting, so here in shooting competitions like long-range disciplines and skeet shooting and those sorts of things. The third is recreational hunting, where there is a tradition of hunting in Australia. And the fourth is for primary producers. So there's no real number, like absolute limit to how many firearms you can own. But certainly you have to be able to provide to police reasons for why you have that number of firearms.
Right. Dr. Coyne, also I would like to ask you that, we know that Germany was just recently able to stop a major attack on a Christmas market. And we also know that this is happening when the Israel-Gaza ceasefire seems to be, in place, but we see some attacks going on. Israel's Benjamin Netanyahu has now blamed for ignoring warnings about these attacks on Jewish community. Do you think there was some kind of security lapse knowing that this kind of thing is happening in other nations such as Germany?
Look, no, I don't think there was. I think that the real issue here was one of the difference between, in liberal democracies, freedom of speech and hate speech. And there's certainly been cases, certainly over the last 12 to 18 months, where people are claiming that they're expressing their freedom of speech, they're expressing their democratic rights to protest, but in doing so, they are sharing hate speech. And certainly some of the reactions on social media, which is at the heart of normalising this sort of hateful thinking. This is not an issue between Arabs and Jews or between Muslims and Jews. This is a terrible, horrendous attack by cowards. This isn't an issue that's as a result of the Israeli government. This is an issue that is the result of people who undertake a cowardly attack to intimidate, to scare and to murder innocent people.
Dr. Coyne, those scenes that we all saw world over coming in from Bondi Beach last evening were extremely distressing. One can only imagine what's going on for the families who were there. Our condolences once again. Thank you so much for joining us here on World DNA.
Thank you.